It all started when Emma finished medical school and began her residency as a urologist. I remember the day she graduated vividly, the pride I felt seeing her in that white coat, the joy on her face after years of grueling study. It was everything we had worked for together, the long nights, the sacrifices we made as a couple. We were in this together, or at least that's what I thought. As a new doctor, Emma was thrown into an intense schedule, something I understood at first. Long hours, late nights, and exhaustion became the norm. But it wasn't just the job that worried me. I could feel something changing between us. She wasn't the same, or maybe it was me who started seeing things differently. Either way, the late nights became more frequent, and her phone seemed to buzz constantly with messages that she quickly swiped away before I could glance over. Whenever I asked, she shrugged it off. "It's just work," she'd say, with that tired smile she'd always flash when she was too exhausted to engage in a conversation. I trusted her, I really did. Emma was my wife, my partner. But there's something about jealousy, something corrosive. It starts small, like a seed planted deep in the pit of your stomach, and with every unanswered question, with every little suspicious moment, it grows. I'd find myself lying awake at night after she'd crawl into bed late, long after I'd already gone to sleep, wondering where she'd been, who she'd been with. Her explanations always made sense, logically, but in my gut, something felt off. It was a small thing at first. She started mentioning this new colleague, Dr. Andrew. He was another young urologist in her department, recently hired. Emma spoke highly of him, how sharp he was, how much he was learning from him. I tried not to let it get to me, but every time she mentioned him, a knot twisted tighter in my chest. I tried to push the thought aside, telling myself I was being irrational. Jealous. Overly protective. But the thought wouldn't leave me alone. I began to notice other things too. The way Emma started dressing differently when she went to work, sharper, more put together. She had always been confident, but now there was something more, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And then there were the late-night texts. She'd claim they were from her attending physician or the hospital administration, but why would she turn her phone away from me when they came through? I didn't want to be the paranoid husband, the guy who snoops through his wife's phone, but the temptation was becoming unbearable. One evening, I decided to bring it up. "Emma, is everything okay at work? You seem distracted lately." She looked at me, a bit surprised, and then sighed. "Jack, I'm just tired. It's been overwhelming. You know how hard it is in the first years of being a doctor. Everything is a blur." I nodded, but I didn't buy it. Her response felt rehearsed, like she'd already planned how to deflect my concerns. I didn't push, though. What was I supposed to do? I loved her. I wanted to believe her. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. Emma had told me she was staying late for a meeting with her department. She kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her coat, and left without a second glance. Something about the way she left felt final. I didn't know why, but it gnawed at me. Hours passed, and she hadn't texted. Normally, she would at least send a quick message to let me know she was okay, but tonight there was nothing. My mind raced, and that seed of doubt I had tried so hard to bury began to sprout. I picked up my phone and opened the location-sharing app we had both installed months ago. It was more of a precaution at the time, a way to keep each other safe. But tonight, it felt like my only chance to calm the storm in my mind. I tapped on Emma's name, expecting to see her at the hospital. But her location showed up somewhere else, a place I knew all too well. Dr. Andrew's apartment complex. My heart pounded in my chest, my vision blurred with rage and confusion. I sat there, staring at the blinking dot on my screen, hoping it was a mistake, some sort of glitch. But it wasn't. She was there. I grabbed my keys and left the house before I could think it through. The drive felt like a dream, or maybe a nightmare. My knuckles were white as I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing with thoughts I didn't want to entertain. What was she doing there? Was I overreacting? Maybe it was something innocent. maybe it wasn't what I feared. When I arrived at the building, I parked a few blocks away, my pulse racing. I got out of the car and walked towards the complex, my feet moving as if they had a mind of their own. I didn't have a plan. What would I do if I saw her? Confront her? Scream? I didn't know, but I needed to see for myself. I needed to know. The complex was quiet, eerily so. I stood outside, my eyes fixed on the door, waiting. And then I saw it. The front door opened, and out walked Emma. She wasn't alone. Dr. Andrew was with her, his hand resting lightly on her back as they stepped into the night. They were laughing. I could hear her laugh, the same laugh she used to share with me. They didn't see me. They just walked past, lost in their conversation, their world. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, watching as they got into his car and drove off. I went home that night, not knowing what to do, what to feel. My mind was a mess, a whirlwind of anger, heartbreak, and betrayal. The affair wasn't confirmed, at least not in the way I imagined. But seeing them together like that, so close, so comfortable, it felt like confirmation enough. Emma came home late, hours after I did. She slid into bed beside me, her body warm against mine, but it felt like ice. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The truth was too heavy, too suffocating. So I lay there in silence, pretending to be asleep, the weight of it all pressing down on me, knowing that everything had changed, even if she didn't realize it yet. My hands were shaking as I reached for my phone, but I knew I had to do it. I needed to hear her voice, to see if she'd slip, to gauge her reaction. Maybe I was overthinking all of this, maybe it was nothing. But after seeing her walk out of Dr. Andrews' apartment, laughing like there wasn't a care in the world, I couldn't just sit there in silence anymore. I dialed her number, my thumb hovering over the screen for just a moment before I pressed call. Each ring felt like a lifetime. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the adrenaline surging through me as I waited for her to pick up. Finally, she answered. Her voice was light, casual, like nothing was wrong. "Hey, Jack." "What's up?" she asked, and I could hear the faint noise of traffic in the background. She was clearly outside somewhere, not in the hospital like she had said she'd be. I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to sound as calm as possible. "Hey, Emma. I finished up my stuff at home early and thought I'd come pick you up from work. I'm already on my way." "Where are you?" There was a brief pause, barely noticeable, but in that moment, I could feel my gut tightening. She wasn't expecting this. "Oh, that's sweet of you," she said, her voice suddenly shifting ever so slightly. "But you didn't need to do that. I'm just finishing up here and then I'll head home. You don't have to come all this way." I gripped the steering wheel harder, keeping my voice steady, though I could feel the frustration rising inside me. "No worries, I'm already halfway there. I figured we could grab some dinner on the way back." "How much longer are you going to be?" There was another pause, longer this time, as if she were scrambling for an excuse. "Actually, I'm about to head into another meeting. It'll probably run late. You should just go ahead without me. I'll be home later." A meeting? Late at night? Something was off, and I knew it. She wasn't at work. She wasn't even close to the hospital. I clenched my jaw, trying to contain the anger that was bubbling up. The image of her walking out of Dr. Andrews' apartment was still fresh in my mind, and now she was lying to me, again. "Are you sure?" I asked, pushing a little harder now. "I'm almost at the hospital. I can just wait for you in the parking lot." Her voice became more defensive, the tension creeping into her words. "No, Jack, it's fine. Really. I don't know how long I'll be. I'll just get a ride home when I'm done." She was lying. I could hear it in the way her voice wavered, the way she was trying too hard to make her excuses sound normal. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly I thought it might crack, the silence between us growing heavier with each passing second. I took a deep breath, deciding to confront her without giving too much away. "Emma," I said, my voice lower, calmer, "are you really still at work?" There was a beat of silence on the other end, the kind that made my heart drop. I could feel her hesitating, her mind scrambling to come up with an answer. "Yes," she finally said, but it was too late. I could hear the uncertainty in her voice, the guilt. I decided to press harder. "Because I'm actually here, Emma," I lied. "I'm in the parking lot, and I don't see your car." There was a sharp intake of breath on her end, and I knew I had her. She wasn't at work, and she knew I was onto her. "Jack, she started, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. I had to run out for a bit. "I'm just grabbing something from a friend's place. I'll be back soon." A friend. She still couldn't bring herself to admit it. My hands were trembling now, the anger boiling beneath the surface. "Which friend, Emma? Is it Dr. Andrew?" Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. "I saw you, Emma," I said quietly, my voice tight with barely controlled rage. "I saw you walking out of his apartment." There was a long, deafening silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, shallow and uneven, as if she were trying to figure out what to say, how to fix this, how to lie her way out of it. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jack, it's not what you think." But I'd heard enough. I hung up the phone before she could finish her sentence, tossing it onto the passenger seat as I sat there in the dark, my mind spinning. It was exactly what I thought. She had been lying to me for weeks, maybe months, sneaking around behind my back while I sat at home, trusting her, believing every excuse. And now, here I was, confronted with the ugly truth that I had been dreading all along. I slammed my fists against the steering wheel, feeling the hot sting of betrayal coursing through my veins. Everything I had feared, everything I had tried to ignore, was real. Emma had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Emma came home later that night, much later than usual. I had been sitting on the couch for hours, staring at nothing, replaying the phone call over and over in my head. The lies, the excuses, the betrayal, it was all there, laid bare, and yet I still couldn't fully process it. I didn't know what I was going to say when she walked through that door, but the anger, the hurt, it was bubbling inside me, barely contained. When I heard her keys jingling at the door, I felt my whole body tense up. I stayed seated, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, as the door swung open and she stepped inside. Emma looked exhausted, her hair slightly disheveled, her eyes puffy like she'd been crying. But I couldn't let myself feel sorry for her, not after what I had just discovered. She froze when she saw me sitting there, like a deer caught in headlights. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The silence between us felt heavy, oppressive, and I could see her struggling to find the words. "Jack," she finally said, her voice soft and trembling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to get like this." I stood up slowly, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Didn't mean for things to get like this?" I echoed, my voice low but hard. "You lied to me, Emma. You've been lying to me for weeks. Maybe longer." Her face crumpled, and she took a step toward me, her hands reaching out as if to touch me, to comfort me. But I backed away, not ready to be anywhere near her. "Jack, please." "I'm sorry," she said again, her voice breaking. "I know I messed up. I made a mistake, but I swear it won't happen again." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "A mistake? You call sneaking around with him a mistake? How long has this been going on, Emma? How long have you been making me look like a fool?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she wiped at them with the back of her hand. "It's not like that. It wasn't some long-term affair, I swear. It was just. I don't even know how it happened. I was stressed, and Andrew, he was there. It was a moment of weakness, Jack. That's all it was. It meant nothing. I wanted to believe her, God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But after everything I'd seen, everything I'd felt, how could I? The image of them together, laughing, her hand on his back, flashed through my mind again, and the bile rose in my throat. You expect me to just forget this? I asked, my voice rising despite myself. You expect me to just move on like nothing happened? I trusted you, Emma. I trusted you with everything, and you threw it all away for him. She flinched at the anger in my voice, but she didn't back down. I know I broke your trust. I know I hurt you, but I love you, Jack. I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to fix this. Please, just give me a chance. Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, the room fell silent again. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to tell her that it was over, that I could never forgive her for what she had done. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. Despite everything, despite the betrayal, there was still a part of me that loved her, a part of me that wasn't ready to let go. I turned away, running a hand through my hair as I tried to collect my thoughts. I don't know if I can do this, Emma, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. She took another step toward me, her voice desperate. Please, Jack. I know I've lost your trust, but I can earn it back. I will earn it back. Just give me a chance. I'll do whatever it takes. I turned to face her again, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. The guilt, the regret, it was all there. But I didn't know if that was enough. How do you move on from something like this? How do you forget the lies, the betrayal, the hurt? I'll try, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll try, Emma. But I can't promise you anything. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. I don't know if things will ever be the same. Her face crumpled again, and she let out a sob, covering her face with her hands as the tears came. Thank you, she whispered between sobs. Thank you for giving me a chance. I'll prove to you that I'm worth it. I swear, Jack, I'll never hurt you like this again. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she could change, that we could get past this. But the truth was, I didn't know if we could. I didn't know if I could. I stood there, watching her cry, feeling the weight of her betrayal crushing down on me. I had said I'd try, but deep down, I wasn't sure if that was even possible. The doubt, the anger, the hurt, it was all still there, lingering beneath the surface. And no matter how much I wanted to fix things, I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. But for now, I would try. For now, I would see if we could rebuild what was left of our marriage. Only time would tell if we could survive this, or if this was the beginning of the end. The weight of everything pressed down on me, suffocating, and I knew I couldn't let this go. Not after everything we had been through. I sat on the couch, staring at the phone in my hand, my mind racing with anger, suspicion, and desperation. Emma stood there, still pleading with me, but her words felt distant, like background noise. I couldn't focus on her, I couldn't trust her, not fully, not anymore. I glanced down at the message again. Your wife is a great urologist, she made me feel good at the appointment, I will be her regular patient. That smug, mocking tone of the message echoed in my mind. Whoever had sent this clearly wanted to mess with me, to plant seeds of doubt in my head, and they had succeeded. The anger inside me boiled over. I couldn't just let this slide, I needed answers. Without thinking too much about the consequences, I opened the message thread again and typed out a response, my fingers moving almost on their own. If you want me to believe you, send me a video of your next appointment. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, the message shooting out into the void. My heart raced as I waited, the seconds ticking by like hours. I had no idea if this was the right move. I didn't even know what I was hoping for. Was this some kind of twisted joke, or was there really someone out there who knew more than I did? Was Emma still hiding something? The air between us was thick with tension. Emma had stopped speaking, her eyes locked on me as if waiting for me to do something, say something. But I had nothing to say to her right now. I was too focused on the phone, waiting for that damn response. A few minutes passed, and then my phone buzzed again. My pulse quickened as I grabbed it, a new message lighting up the screen. You sure about that? Would you really want to see? My hands trembled as I stared at the words. My stomach churned. The question hit harder than I expected. Did I really want to see it? Did I really want to go down this path? There was a part of me that was screaming to stop, to just let it go, but the other part, the part that had been broken by betrayal, needed to know the truth, no matter how ugly it was. I typed back quickly, my emotions taking over. Yes. Send it. I hit send, my heart pounding in my chest. Emma was still watching me, confusion and worry etched on her face. She stepped closer, her voice soft and pleading. Jack, what are you doing? Who are you texting? I looked up at her, my face hard, unyielding. I need to know the truth, Emma. I can't just sit here and trust that everything is fine after this. She blinked, her eyes wide with fear. What do you mean? I already told you, it's nothing. It's probably just some creep trying to mess with us. You can't trust some random text message. Maybe, I replied coldly, but I'm going to find out. Her face paled, and she took a step back. Jack, please. This is crazy. Don't let this person come between us again. We were doing so well, weren't we? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The doubt had already consumed me. The betrayal from a month ago had cracked something inside me, and now, with this new message, I was starting to wonder if the cracks had grown too wide to repair. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a video. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the notification, my thumb hovering over the play button. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to see what might be on the other side of that screen. But I had asked for this. I needed to know. Jack, what is that? Emma's voice was panicked now, her eyes darting between me and the phone. She could see what was happening, but I didn't stop. I tapped the screen, and the video opened. For a moment, the screen was dark, and then the video snapped into focus. It was the inside of an exam room, her exam room. My heart pounded as I recognized it immediately, the sterile white walls, the medical equipment lined up neatly. I could hear faint voices in the background, muffled but recognizable. One of them was Emma's. She was speaking to a patient, her voice calm and professional. It was a normal appointment, until it wasn't. As the camera shifted, I saw her step closer to the patient, the conversation turning personal, the tone changing. The patient, whoever they were, was filming the entire thing, and they were making sure I saw exactly what they wanted me to see. The video cut out abruptly, leaving me staring at the blank screen, my mind spinning, my heart hammering in my chest. It wasn't explicit, but it was enough. Enough to send me reeling, enough to confirm that this wasn't just some harmless misunderstanding. Something had happened. Something that couldn't be explained away as a simple mistake. I stood there, frozen, unable to speak, unable to process what I had just seen. Jack? Emma's voice broke through my thoughts, trembling with fear. What did they send you? I looked up at her, my face a mixture of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. You tell me, Emma. You tell me what's really going on. Because I just saw a video of you with a patient, and it didn't look like nothing. Her eyes went wide, her face draining of color. What? A video? Jack, I swear, I don't know what you're talking about. I never. I cut her off, my voice rising. Stop lying, Emma. Stop making excuses. This is exactly what happened before, and now it's happening again. How am I supposed to believe you when I have this right in front of me? She looked like she was going to collapse, her knees trembling as she sank down onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Jack, please, you have to believe me. I don't know who sent that. I don't know what they're trying to do, but I swear to you, I haven't done anything wrong. I stared at her, my chest tight, the anger and hurt swirling inside me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted so badly to believe that this was just another cruel joke, that someone was messing with us, but I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Not after what I had just seen. I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. I don't know if I can do this, Emma. I don't know if I can keep pretending that everything's fine when it's not. She sobbed softly behind me, her voice barely a whisper. Please, Jack. Don't leave. Don't walk away. I love you. But her words felt hollow, like echoes in an empty room. I didn't respond. I just stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, wondering how we had ended up here. Wondering if there was any way to come back from this. Or if this was the final blow that would shatter us for good. The room felt suffocating, my heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Emma's quiet sobs filled the silence between us, but I couldn't even focus on her anymore. I was trapped in my own head, the weight of the video I'd just seen crushing down on me. How had it come to this? How had everything we built fallen apart so completely? And then, my phone buzzed again. The same number. Reset the second part of the video? I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. My hands began to tremble. There was more? The first video was bad enough, the implications devastating. But this was something else. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. My thoughts spun in all directions, but no matter where I looked, it all came back to this, a truth I could no longer ignore. I didn't hesitate this time. Without thinking, I typed a single word. Yes. I pressed send, my heart sinking further into the pit of my stomach. A part of me didn't want to see it, didn't want to face the reality of what was about to come, but I knew I had no choice. The first video had shattered the fragile trust we'd been trying to rebuild. This would destroy everything. Moments later, my phone buzzed again. The video appeared on the screen, and with shaking hands, I opened it. It started in the same room, the sterile whiteness of her exam room, but this time, it was different. The camera was focused on Emma, her hands wrapped around him, her body close, her face flushed. She wasn't a doctor in that moment, she was something else entirely. She moaned softly, and I felt the bile rise in my throat. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't just a lapse in judgment. This was something intimate. Something I could never unsee. I dropped the phone, the sound of it hitting the floor barely registering in my mind as I stood there, paralyzed by shock and disgust. My stomach turned, and I felt like I was going to be sick. The betrayal hit me like a freight train, the image of Emma, my wife, burned into my brain forever. Behind me, I could still hear her, sobbing quietly, oblivious to the fact that I had just seen everything. The truth was out, laid bare in front of me, and there was no coming back from it. No apologies, no promises, no amount of tears could ever erase what I had just witnessed. Without a word, I turned and walked toward the bedroom. My movements felt mechanical, detached, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. I opened the closet, grabbed one of her suitcases, and started shoving her clothes inside. Dresses, shoes, work clothes, it didn't matter. I grabbed handfuls of everything, throwing them into the suitcase with no care for how they landed. I moved through the house in a daze, pulling her things from drawers, the bathroom, anywhere I could find them. Her toiletries, her books, her shoes, it all went into the pile. I could hear her coming toward me, her footsteps hesitant, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. This was the end. Jack, what are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling, still raw from crying. Please, just talk to me. I ignored her. My jaw clenched tight, my body fueled by nothing but rage and heartbreak. When I finished packing her things, I zipped up the suitcase, the sound echoing in the quiet house like the closing of a door. I grabbed the suitcase and stormed to the front door, yanking it open so hard I nearly tore it off its hinges. With one final burst of energy, I threw her things outside, the suitcase landing with a heavy thud on the front steps. I turned back to see Emma standing in the hallway, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. She looked broken, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. Not anymore. "This is over, Emma," I said, my voice cold, flat. "Get out." She stood there, frozen, her hands clasped to her chest as if she couldn't believe what was happening. "Jack, please," she whispered, her voice cracking with desperation. "Please, don't do this." I stepped closer, my hands trembling with anger. "Don't do this?" I spat, my voice rising. "I saw the video, Emma. I saw everything. How could you lie to me again? How could you do this to me?" Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I'm so sorry, Jack. Please, I'll do anything. Just, don't leave me." But her words meant nothing now. They were empty, hollow, like the promises she had made a month ago when she swore it was over. The betrayal had cut too deep, and there was no way back from this. No way to repair what had been broken. "Get out," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper, but the finality in my tone was unmistakable. "I never want to see you again." She didn't move at first, just stood there, her face twisted in grief and regret. But eventually, she seemed to understand that this was it. The end. Without another word, she walked past me, her eyes avoiding mine as she stepped out the door. She grabbed the suitcase, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the handle, and then she was gone. I stood in the doorway, watching as she walked down the steps, her silhouette fading into the night. The weight of everything hit me all at once, and I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. The house was quiet now, too quiet, and I could still hear the echoes of her sobs in my mind. I closed the door slowly, locking it behind me, sealing her out of my life for good. There was no going back now. Emma was gone, and so was everything we had built together. I walked back into the living room, the silence pressing down on me like a heavy weight. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, my mind numb, my heart shattered. It was over. The end.